Hello everyone, I'm Albert Yen Aidan from Chicago. I normally do a monthly game commentary for the AGA e-journal, and now I'm trying to transition to a video format so that it can be more engaging and people can more readily share it. So before I used to just submit a SGF file, and now, but you need an SGF editor to open it. So hopefully with the video format will be more interesting, more readily accessible. So last week there was a very exciting event taking place in San Francisco, where Michael Chen became the newest North American pro. So in this special episode, I want to go over my most recent tournament game against him, which was a City League game this year. And you can see in the SGF I have shown here, there are already comments because I submitted this to the e-journal a couple months ago. And in each move, there's a win rate shown here and the score estimate from Black's perspective. So as you know, in under the 7.5 Komi system, White is slightly advantage. So Black will start with a slightly lower win rate, a little over 40% and almost a 1 point disadvantage. But it doesn't really matter in a human game since it's not even a point. So Michael usually has a very atypical style. He doesn't like to play normal Joseki in openings. So it's my goal to really simplify the opening as much as I can and lead into a more solid, less chaotic position. I was surprised he played simply here, chose this Joseki. Most of the time now we really regard this as slightly better for Black. And notice the old move is to connect here, but after AI, we learned that this clamp is actually quite severe, and the Aji is not really worth it to connect versus a game move. The downside here, later, there's a cut Aji. So let's see. So for example, something like this. Let's say White push connects. Maybe Black want to connect here, and then now this cut exists. It's hard for Black to save everything. Obviously, there's a cut here, and there's a Hane here. But we can use a classic sacrifice to Tsuji. So in most cases, this is not a very severe move for White. It's only, you only play as a move to destroy Black's territory, but you can't really separate Black or severely attack this group. A little bit about that corner. And again, I play another big point, nothing fancy there. He extended. It's also possible for Black to came out here. Let me try to think why he didn't. I think if he extend, maybe I will choose to push again. This is a way to try to get Sente. If White Hane here, I will Tenuki for sure. This is an interesting shape as well because rarely can Black get Sente after 3-3, but in this case, since Black already has 4 stones, White can't do anything too severe. So for example, White Hane, connect, this is usually fine, except now this double Hane doesn't work because Black already has 4 stones. So White can only extend, and Black pushes again. And now Black gets Sente again. So White can't really push Hane connect here. The best move locally is this Tiger's Mouth. Now White has a pretty strong wall, and Black has 2 options. So let's assume White plays something simple. So there's nothing urgent, and White gets Sente. Hane connect is a very big move locally, but it's also possible for Black to Tenuki. So let's say Black Tenuki, and White can get all of this in Sente. Now this, White doesn't have to connect right away because maybe White can use the Tiger's Mouth Aji, so just Hane once will be good enough. For later, eventually White will connect in Sente, and Black extends. The corner only has 6 points. So that's why this Hane is a very big reverse Sente move. And notice too, now there's a clamp Aji and a peep Aji. So in the game, White Hane to gain Sente. It's totally fine. I think now it creates a better follow-up for Black. So for example, later, I did play this in the game in a few moves. So Black, if it's Black's turn, Black can get a nice shape like this. And White's wall is kind of floating. versus if I just Tanuki here and I play another move, I don't think the shape is quite as strong. So it's almost like this shape and then white made a couple one bad exchange. So I would rather take this shape as black than this one. That's why I pushed earlier. It's a very subtle thing though, so it just I want to mention it to tell people why I push again. And this push, you can only play it when the top upper side is not very valuable, because right now white has this stone, so neither side can really get a framework in the top. If the top is valuable, then letting white seal you like this would not be good, right? Let's say there's a lot of potential here. Then black doesn't want to be sealed into the corner on both sides. And then this shoulder hit is also a common move. You can treat this kind of shoulder hit as the same as like an extension, where you will see in like in the professional game 10 years ago. They serve the same purpose. It's just a little more aggressive, maybe a little more efficient. It serves to limit black's potential too. So black, no matter which side black pushes, white can just jump. And the same thing here. And now leaves a good follow-up with the tiger's mouth. One thing though, if black wedges here, connecting is usually a heavy move. You want to play another light move. Usually one of these two came out. The idea is you want to treat these stones lightly. And you can sacrifice any of them, depending on the situation. So black wedges and connect, and on a relatively empty board, try to came up. This either play here or this came up. Now go into the corner again. Notice the score estimate now is slightly more favorable for black. We started out at like 41.8%, minus 7 points. No, not minus 7, minus 0.7. And now we're back to about even. So I think the AI thinks the top two Joseki, especially the top right, was slightly more favorable for black. I chose again another simple Joseki. I didn't want to mess with this complicated one, the flying knife. Right now, I think white can still play it. Well, I guess. Okay, so there's a ladder consideration in this Joseki, and where's the ladder? Ladder is here. If the ladder is good for white, then black cannot play like this. And it's this ladder. Right now, white cannot play like this, so black can potentially choose this Joseki. But as we know, like this is one of the most complicated Joseki in the modern Go. So I don't want to play something like this against one of the strongest fighters in the North American Go scene. Something like this could lead to a very complicated fight. As you can see, white has 4 cutting points in a corner group that's not alive. But it's also hard for black to settle both groups without damaging the other one. So I decided to delay the fight. Black has a lot of options here. Black can target here or the other one. I guess 2 options, but still options. This one or this one. Usually this is better when white cannot capture here. If white can ladder this one, usually black doesn't want to choose this Joseki, just because it's really painful for this stone to be captured so cleanly. And now if black Tanuki, because this stone only has 1 liberty now, white can have very severe attacking moves around here. In the other variation, black can extend again first, so white doesn't have an opportunity to ladder this stone. And now we see like black kind of transition to the bottom side, leaving the left side for white. And I think now this set up perfectly for black's follow-up in the corner. white's side is really open, so white really wants to spend another move in the middle somewhere. It could be like maybe high on the 5th line, like here, 4th line. But right now, my descent also creates a weakness on the 2nd line. So no matter which move white plays, black can come in the other way. So if white blocks, then there's no way, for example, for white to capture this stone later, or this stone. And especially because black has a couple sente moves around here, right? So it'll be relatively easy for black to invade. So I was happy up to here for black's opening. Usually black there's also possible for black to reinforce here. This is locally a good follow-up and kind of completes the Joseki. But since white has a Keima shape here rather than the clean Atari, the clean ladder, it's possible for black to Tenuki. And I thought the top left corner is really big, so I played there instead. So these are all common follow-ups. I guess a trap here would be for white to push cut. This is a mistake. Notice the ladder, I guess maybe black needs to push again. So let's say the ladder works. Black just need to make an exchange. Okay, so this ladder doesn't work. White has to capture here, otherwise these 3 stones will be dead. Now white gets hit a bunch of Tari later. White becomes a big dumpling. It's a very bad shape, and then black can extend again. There's no way to kill the side, the corner black stone, and now white has a lot of weaknesses on the outside. If white jumps here, black can push here. It looks like white's gonna collapse. If white fixes with this net, black can Kasumi here first. White doesn't have time to kill this group because white is also not alive. So white needs to fix, and then black can reinforce. Even though locally is already alive actually, but the Keima's still big. Maybe black will play here. And it's hard for white to really attack this stone, these stones. So more of the story, don't push cut. Now Mike will play correctly here by Tenuki. This block, obviously a big move. It's a good follow-up after A, the earlier shoulder hit. So I jump, white jumps. I guess the jump is just aiming to take away black's base. But I'm not too afraid of that right now because white's still owing a move around here. So I push out. Try to play more efficiently, but actually it's better for me to just push back according to the AI. So now I fix one cutting point and I can always turn later. There's no reason, there's no way that white will push here because then white's shape is broken. White will definitely play something a little more indirect. Either Tenuki here locally or maybe Kasumi, something else. So later I can always push. And now when I push here, I kind of leave a weakness. Although it's not good for white to exploit it, attack it in the game. I think white should just play the extension. Now I block. So now the A and B exchange is not necessarily good for black. A small thing. I thought about the weaknesses here. I just didn't expect him to attach right away. I played the push here very quickly, and he also attached very quickly, so I'm not sure if he was really preparing to play here. But the result turned out to be okay for me. This is a good defense. If not for that move, it would be hard for black to respond here locally. So if I push, white will, I think, maybe white will just Atari, and now I have to connect. Or Atari, maybe Atari this one. Now black's not locally alive. But luckily I can hunt it here. So the result is I capture 3 stones. And while getting sent it, white fix here later, and I Tenuki. Locally, capturing these 3 stones, this shape is bad for black. But it's a tricky exchange because white also spent a move here. So let me go back. On an empty board, so let's say right now, before white tried to attack the bottom left. I can always, this is already possible for me to play like this. Let me push once. So the ladder works for black. I can already play like this. But this is not a good exchange. Black only captured 3 stone while saving 1. Maybe it's worth 6 points, let's say. But white got a wall and sente. This is not good for black. However, in the game, it's different because capturing these 3 stones is worth a whole eye while black is under attack. So it's almost like white spent a move at A, but black lived in sente. So then how big is A? And even the earlier follow-up, right? This is also an extra move. So those 2 moves, these 2 moves are, these 3 stones are now fairly inefficient. Even if you take away the stone, white's shape is perfect. Even this stone, white's shape is fine. So white basically were forced to play 2 very small moves on the second line, whereas black shape is more or less all have decent efficiency. Maybe we can take away 1 stone here. So at the very least, white wasted a move relative to black. So this subtle difference enabled black to make this normally unfavorable trade. In the opening, everything's about efficiency. Groups, you won't really see big group living or dying. Well, living, yes. You won't see big group dying in the opening. So how to get a relative advantage is really through making sure your stones are a little bit more efficient than your opponents. So then you can see that reflected in the score estimate. Black gained a little over a point here. So now it has a slight lead over white. It's still very early. This doesn't matter too much. But to explain the subtleties, I have to really analyze the efficiency of each stone. So black is happy to get sente. This and then to invade here. There's also a follow-up after my earlier descent, like 1. Blocking is a strong move. It's okay for white to let black connect back sometimes too. Like blocking is not always necessary. But of course, Michael, I think he's also more fighting oriented. So he's not going to play peaceful moves and just allow the game to go into endgame without any major fights. And indeed, like the fight that erupted from this block decided the outcome of the game. So now, this invasion was aiming kind of Miai, like jumping to the center or connecting back. So now he blocked my way back. I have to jump to the center. It's very natural. It's also possible for me to jump like a little bit, 1 space up, like a second line, maybe even the Keima. There are a lot of possibilities here, but something toward the center would be acceptable. Or even maybe to the side. Maybe black can try to settle like this. That's also possible. I just prefer to run to the center because the white corner group is also not alive. If I go to the side, I'm afraid I would just allow white to have a strong wall in the middle. That usually is fine. That's fine for territory, but right now, maybe white can have a sente move here against the corner, and then there might be sente moves around here, forcing moves. So I don't know how solid black space actually is if I choose to live on the side. That's why I run into the center. The push cut is interesting too. This is very early for this type of a testing move. Of course, I connected here. If I target here, then that gives white a bunch of sente pushes. But even this push is almost sente. White can profit by having this sente like double hane. Like white won't actually play this push right away, but later, if black hane, white can always cut. So that would be really annoying. White will get sente and attack the middle group, and black barely got any points in the top. Connecting is a must. And then he started this really interesting co-shape. I don't know what his plan was. So, and I figure like this cut was already lost him a few points. So I just avoided the ko. But actually, I missed a good chance to take the lead in the game. I can fight the ko. So we're like, I fight the ko as in tenuki here, and then allow white to start the ko. If you capture here, this doesn't really do much. I can take the ko first, but even if he were to win, it's just some like gote points in the corner. Not a big deal. Maybe I'm more afraid of this push, but even if white wins the ko, it's still a seki. And the thing is a sente seki for black. So it might only be worth around 10 points. And now black already got a move on the outside and maybe can even counterattack white. Black also potentially has ko threats too. Maybe around here. Like black can try to create some ko threats before going back to the ko. So I'm played a somewhat of a slow move and allow white to escape in this corner without further losses. This sente, like this first line move is useful because then white now has a backdoor to connect back to the wall on the bottom left. The cap is a vital point, as my comment says. This is also where black would have played. I have a lot of options here too, but I just choose another simple move to jump on the side. I knew I could play probably the attach, one of the attach. That will also be playable, but then it will lead to complicated fighting because I don't think black can capture this stone. So how to manage this will be tricky. Yeah, in the game, I knew he was trying to pull this combo. So he pushed and then connected to Satari. Now he threatens to cut me at A, while also protecting the cut at B. I connected here me out of inertia. I was planning on Tenuki here. I attach out because I knew the bottom left is alive. But I could also do it at this point. It feels counterintuitive to give white this push and outlet. But actually the outside is really not that big. And in the game, I allow white to almost capture these three stones. So then there's no karaji at A. But in this shape there is, so that will help my group on the left a lot too. And right now, like the 3 mark stone on the outside is not worth a lot. Black is pretty solid on the right, so it will be hard for white to really do anything or like surround these three. It's not like white can get 30 points in the middle. This is in the neighborhood of 10 points, which is totally acceptable from black's perspective. So then now white connected here and that no longer can kind of be. The game is still pretty reasonable, reasonably close. And now we're gearing towards a fight in the middle. This push is classic Michael Chen style because it leaves a very obvious weak point. But it's not like if you play the cut, white will collapse immediately. It still lead to a lot of complicated fighting, but you can kind of tell like this cut, would be kind of unreasonable for white to not protect. So of course, he left me with no choice. I have to cut. And here's where chaos began. Yeah, I go through a long post about how to evaluate this fight, and I'll just summarize it by saying this. Black already started out with a lot of influence on the right side. And if we dial back, rewind, the left side started out with 2 white corners, right? So this is basically within white's sphere of influence. And it's upon this spaces that the fight erupted. So no matter what happened, we have to like acknowledge white's advantage on the left side. So my goal here is not to attack white, not to kill white. It's really just to settle both groups without giving white too much. This is an important distinction. Black can afford to sacrifice some because I already have a lot of value on the right side and the top left. Combined, they should be in the neighborhood of 35 points. White only has about 10. maybe even 40 points for black. Like let's say 40, and then white has about 10 top right, a little over 10 the bottom, so that only combines to 20, which means black has a close to 20 point advantage in territory without factoring the left side. So in this game, white really needs the thickness to pull through and get some value. Otherwise, black just has too many points. So we played both made some mistakes in the fight, of course. But I wasn't too worried because I knew after making the judgment that I could afford to give up some. Like the goal is not to save everything or to even kill white. So I think this is important to know. Like you need to set up to establish a goal or set up the right expectation before engaging in a fight. Otherwise, you don't even know if it's good or bad for you. So now is a very interesting part of the game. There are a lot of groups intertwined with each other, and a lot of groups are expandable from black's perspective. For example, right now my left side group is no longer vital. If I can somehow cut off the middle and get all of this territory, suddenly this side doesn't seem so big, especially because maybe I can also push through here later. Now I'm talking in more like abstract terms, not about like the exact sequence, because that involves a lot of reading. But before we read out exact sequences, we need to understand the position, kind of a big picture, where we will know what we have to do. So now there's the stone extra. Let me set up a new position. Right. So there's extra stone out here. This stone cuts off the top left white group from the middle, but is in danger of being Atari anytime. Or a ladder. This Atari will kill the black stone ladder. And if the center fight is intensifying, this push is not Sente. Because the center is just too big. The corner pales in comparison to this 50-point center plus the 40-point corner here. Notice black really needs to spend another move here. Otherwise, the corner is not completely alive. So that's why it's very chaotic. Black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potential unsettled groups. So as you can imagine, I spent a long time thinking about this position, and my 1 hour main time was also running low. I think I entered overtime right around here. Oh, maybe I haven't mentioned, but this is the City League game from this year between Chicago and New York City. We played for board 3. Yep, so the right side was blocked, and then I have to give up some, obviously. There's no way for black to kill this stone, which is unfortunate. So now I was already planning for a big sacrifice strategy. Let's try to see like a few simple moves. If I live, well, the ladder here doesn't work, so I don't have to extend right away, but it's still a big move for later. If I just fix here, I'm worried white will capture. So now white doesn't have any weaknesses, and now I have 2 weak groups on the left. It's hard for me to live both. If I play here, I'm not sure if this black group can survive. If white just played like the simple extension, or maybe even this move. It's unclear if black can live here. And vice versa. If I try to save this group, then white will capture. I might not be able to make an eye here. And then I only have 1 eye in the corner. So I now establish that as long as white can really connect this whole group, I really can't fix the left side in 1 move. So then my goal is clear. I have to fix the center. But I also wasn't super happy about just extending, because it leaves a lot of weaknesses in the center too. That's unresolved. White has some Sente moves around here. For example, this extension I have to fix. And then I think white can just push from here and capture these stones. Now the top left is connected to the center, and my extension looks kind of silly. So I have to simultaneously make sure I fix the the D cut, the D ladder and the cut at E. And the answer was this move, the Hane. So now I fixed the ladder and Sente. White has to block here, otherwise there are issues. White has to block, otherwise there's Atari or double Atari. I think the AI suggestion here is really, it's just to jump. And this allows black to save both groups. But my game variation was also acceptable too. Now everybody lives. Black's center, I got a Panuki stone, but it really isn't, you can't really consider this as profit because it's not connected to anything. I still have to spend another move to save it, and white can still invade. White's the center is pretty thick, and white can also capture the tail here anytime. But this is about a reasonable result for both. So the game will be really close. I think it's still within like 2 points. Maybe white has slightly in the lead right now by like half a point to a point. But for our purposes, it's an even game. It will the game will be decided on how white reduces the right side. But my Hane pretty much destroyed that possibility. The game will now be decided by what happens on the left side. So he also made a mistake here. He planned to capture the bottom left corner, but he made some unnecessary exchanges in the middle. So let's see what happened in the game. My follow-up on this Hane connect was this nice Atari squeeze sequence. So now the entire group here doesn't have a clear eye. And even capturing this stone only gives white a fake eye. So now I'm really setting myself up for the big trade that will happen in the game, where I sacrifice the bottom left for white's top left. I didn't read out the exact sequence, but I kind of had an idea that this will be an okay direction for black. So I decided to play from this side rather than save the bottom left directly. Because if I save this group, I will have I can take profit by potentially killing the top left. If I save the bottom left, there's no follow-up. So let's proceed to where the trade is. All right, there's a lot of time Suji. So basically, I did kill the white group in the end, and white killed my bottom left. And we were talking about the extension in the center. White kind of made this weird exchange in the center. So then black also profited in the center, which really doomed the game for white. Without this exchange, 2 corner exchanges will be more or less comparable. So let's rewind. Yeah, white can just take here. I'll play something similar. So if the 2 corners are still dead, it's the same. But then this Atari exchange, Aji, will be very interesting for white. It's kind of a ladder shape. Of course, it doesn't work for white. But when white try to invade the right side, for example, like attach or some shoulder hit, it's possible that black will have to capture back, and white can use these Sente Atari to profit. So black has an extra weakness in the center. This is very different from the game where I basically have 20 points in the center already baked in. I think his issue here, he told me later in the game, was he thought capturing the bottom left was just so big that it doesn't really matter what will happen next. So maybe he extended here just to make sure that I will sacrifice the bottom left. But actually, it is not really enough for white to just capture my corner. I made a mistake here. I'll talk about the size of the trade, but shape-wise, the pushing here is much better. What I misread was about how to manage this situation. I wasn't sure if black will live if white just hane and keep pushing. But I missed this Atari. So if I extend and white blocks, then there's 4 liberties and black has nowhere to run. But black can hane. It looks like black has a lot of cutting points here, but since white only has 2 liberties, none of it works. If white Atari, black connect, there's no ladder possibility here. And same with the cut here. White can't cut here, obviously. And even if white fills from here, black can Atari or Atari this. I was already in overtime, so I didn't want to risk it. I knew the game would be okay if someone like this center group lived, so I didn't want to risk misreading something and have the game end instantly. That would be very devastating. So I Kosumi, but it lost me a lot of points. Almost 6 actually. So this is one of my biggest mistakes in the game. And same with this move. I wasn't sure if I can Tanuki, like what will happen if white plays this. I saw that the Atari doesn't work because I can use this Atari Sente, I can connect back. And as long as I connect back, white's top left is still in danger and white's center is also in trouble. The question is this move. I can't Atane, otherwise white can Atari and capture. And extend, probably not as good because then white can Atari here and push. I only have 2 liberties. I extend, white pushes again. I have 3 liberties, but nowhere else to run. If I try to cut, I don't think it's possible to reduce white to just 3 liberties or 2 liberties. The black maybe can, white has to push here and the jump works for white. Black has to fix, white can extend. Even with black Ataris again, white already has 3 liberties. So this is not working for black. So the key move when white attaches is this bump. Now this gave black an extra liberty, and that changes everything. White dies. So white has to be careful here too. And but if white doesn't push, then black can connect. So if white is trying to kill black, this is the only move. It will be decided by this MI. So white can either push here or turn. The push doesn't work because black can bump here. There's no ladder. So white will turn, but black can hane. And now it seems like it's 4 liberties to black's 3, but black can extend and get another liberty by extending. Now black has 5. So then black can win the samurai, the capturing race. But this is just a long sequence that I didn't have time to read. The City League uses Canadian overtime, so you only get 10 minutes for every 20. You get 10 minutes for every 25 moves. So which means if you spend a long time in a few moves, you might only have 1 or 2 minutes for the last dozen moves. At this point, the time was really ticking down. I had a few minutes for more than 10 moves. So on average, I could only afford to spend maybe 10 seconds for each move. So I decided to not risk it and just play here. But because I was directionally correct on the fight, it was working for me. White had to really work harder. Just killing me wasn't really enough. The white capture. I was trying to read out what will happen in the center if I extend or if I turn. And in the middle of time pressure, I Atari once.
This was a gigantic blunder. I don't even remember what I was reading. I think I thought I could push down and then realized it doesn't work because these three stones are already in Tari. So that was very silly. Yeah, so if black continue push down, why can't Hane here? There's nothing. Black wants to push, like separate white, but black has liberty shortage. It's 6 liberties to 4. Black will lose by 1 liberty. I guess a fun side note, this is 1 liberty difference, not 2. White cannot ignore this move, even though it looks like it's still 4 liberties against 3. Because black can have this nice first line Hane. And then now, black has 1 liberty ahead. So let's go back to the middle. Yeah, I was really bummed after making this Atari exchange. So the bottom left is still dead, but then I made an exchange within white's territory and allow white to get this extension, which might actually threaten the whole life and death of my group here. But really luckily for me, I was able to like recollect myself, calm down, and really reevaluate the situation. A lot of time we get stuck in like the sunk cost fallacy. You really want to keep playing in an area after you made a mistake. But really you just have to calm down, take a deep breath, and reevaluate the game. Figure out where you need to play. If it's dead, it's dead. You can't really do anything about it. So I thought about what was gonna happen, assuming the bottom left is dead. And my only chance, of course, is in the middle. So I just ignored it and played the center. And I allow white to capture and kill the bottom left. So you might wonder why I didn't save the bottom left, but it's not as big as the center. So white can now still capture the center, or save the middle. Now save the center, capture my 2 stones, and I don't see a good way for me to live on the left. Even if black lives here, it might not be favorable because white profited in the center. Now white can really attack the stones floating in the center. And I'm not sure if this slide, like this, is alive. Sorry. Yeah, it's unclear if this is indeed alive. It might live. It might live. Painful 2 eyes. But even like this, the game would not be favorable for black. First of all, I already lost the 5 stones in the middle and the 2 stones here. I didn't really gain any more points. Oh, and then I lost the 3 stones here. I maybe have 3 points, 4 points on the left. And what I got is still the right side. But now with the center stones not really connected to the right side, it will be pretty easy for white to just push down, no matter what I do. So this will kind of be an auto loss for black, even though I might not lose by that much. White is really thick. I won't really find my chance. So this prompted me to go ahead with the sacrifice strategy and try to force a trade. And I was only able to make this call because I already evaluated the position a while ago, like at the beginning of the fight, and to figure out that, oh, it's possible for me to lose one side, and that'll be okay. So I think it's good to, like, from time to time, think about the big picture stuff in the fight. So that will help you guide your reading and think about what's possible. If you instinctively think black has to save everything, and then you run to a fight, and then at the end you realize it's not possible, then your thought process will be stuck. So I encourage everyone to like think about different types of positional judgment and see like what trades are possible and anticipate what might happen. You won't be right all the time, but I think you need to have that mindset of like trading and sacrifice and like try to predict ways that a fight might end. And that will really get you in the process of in the right mindset for thinking about the right judgment and playing the right moves. You have to first imagine that possibility before verifying those moves with your reading, I would say. So like in terms of reading, it's just too complicated. There's no way for me to figure out what everything were all the possibilities. So I could only kind of have an idea of what might happen and then use that to tell me like what I need to consider. And at this point I was down to like 15 seconds a move. Or even less than that. So I was just relying on the big picture stuff to guide what I need to read. I don't have time to read more than one or two variations for each move. So I made that big blunder at A, but I came back to the extension in the center. So this is arguably my game-winning move because I didn't collapse and try to push and lead straight to defeat. So the score estimate is now very lopsided for white. That doesn't mean, however, the game is already over, because it's still in a very complicated fighting situation. Maybe the 14 points is assuming that white's group survives, for example. You never know what the AI really anticipating. So if the game is very complicated, it probably is, regardless of what the AI says. I was out of time, and you can see in the 25 move per 10-minute time setting, I need to play a bunch of moves quick at the end of my block to get a new period of 10 minutes. So I played a lot of useless moves. These are all the same, and then came back to trying to kill the top left. Yeah, so let's see. If black can kill the top left, how many points will black have? This is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 16, 18, 19 stones, plus 3 in the center. These 3 are basically dead. These 2 is maybe. So 22, 44, 60, 44, 50, about 60 to here, and then 70. So this middle portion is already 70 points, plus a good 30 on the right. That's well over 100 because we haven't even counted the middle potential. White only has 10 here, and how big is this? 5, 10, 15 stones, 20 stones, 21 stones, 26 stones. So that's 52 points, and then some territory. Almost 30 points in territory. So that's 52 plus 30 plus 10 here, 90 something for white. But then black has an extra potential. So actually, if white can't save this group, white is down by quite a bit, right? It will be 90 something plus, against black's 100 something, but then black has a 20, 30, 25, 30 point moyo. I don't think he really adjusted to that reality yet, and then he was also trying to pressure me on time because he was not in Byoyomi when I was down to like a few seconds, maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and I still have several moves left. So here I had to play every move in like 5 to 10 seconds. So he maybe tried to trick me, or maybe he subconsciously tried to use time pressure. So he played the attach very quickly, and I think it was a mistake. The problem with this attacher is it doesn't really work locally, and it might waste white's liberties in this area. My Hane here is actually a slight error. I should have just Hane from here. And white cannot make an eye in this area. This is pretty similar. White can't make an eye. My Hane here, white can cut first of all. there's no out here. This cut doesn't exist. But white can push. It's a very subtle, unexpected move, but it works. Black cannot block, otherwise white can push here. If black blocks, then white can Atari. So there's liberty shortage. So then black will have to connect and allow white to push down. This is still okay locally, but notice white gains a lot of liberties from these exchanges. It might be better for black to just block here. So white's correct move would be to just trying to start a capturing race on the left. Black, neither side is alive locally, but white can try to get some liberties in Sente and then come back to the capturing race. I don't know exactly what will happen, but it seemed like it would be hard for black to capture this group. So let's just run through a couple variations. Black can Hane and white can play here. Black can cut because white can push here. So connect. What's a good move? Let's say white Atari connect. Okay, and then peep. Black most likely has to connect, otherwise black can push. This seems to limit black's liberty. So black connects, and white pushes. So now black, well, I guess black has some Sente around here, so maybe black can block. And then white will connect. Black will connect, white plays here, just fill some liberties. So notice white has an eye, so black has to fill. And it seems like black doesn't have enough liberties. Black only has 5. Oh, actually, this doesn't work for white, but I think white could play a little better. I think this is better. So this creates an extra ko and more I shape here, or more liberties here. So now white gains an extra liberty here, in addition to the ko. So there's a ko-aji, which is definitely better than the game already, where there wasn't anything. And if white somehow takes back, white has a local threat. I'm not sure white can do better. But in either case, this is already much better than the game, where this group just died unconditionally with very little aji. Other possibilities. I think the top is probably as good of a shape as white can get. 1, 2, 3, 4 liberties. 3 liberties. So the reason why this move is better than this is because after these exchanges, white doesn't, there's just no common liberties here. And white had to connect the ko. And the other variation, white can capture the ko, capture back the ko, and no matter how black plays, there will be an extra liberty compared to the other one. So I guess it will be impossible to really cover all the complicated variations here, but conceptually, it makes sense that white wants to save the exchanges on the top after maybe making probing moves on the left. If it enters in the same eye, then this attach is probably not the best move for white to gain liberties. So in the game he peeped here, but he missed that critical exchange at A. I think if you play at A first and then peep, it will be more complicated. And I was allowed to, he allowed me to block here, and my Hane was good. So now there's really no Aji. He peeped, I blocked. Then in the game, he just attached here, clamped. And I was able to capture these two stones. So then it's basically a no I kill no I situation. So I can live, I can make a second eye around here, so white to kill, and then I can just seal off white's path to the top side. Or take away this eye. It's a tricky shape on the left, but because black has sente moves in the middle, white can't really push here. I read that black can play the Kasumi, then create a Miai. There's a Miai shape here. Yeah, so white can connect back. White black can play this Hane due to liberty shortage. And if white simply Hane back, is not good enough. Black captures two stones. Even if white to cut here, this is not a live shape. So I was really excited here because I thought the game was pretty much over for me after I made the blunder in the middle. After I made this blunder, and all of a sudden, at this point, I was capturing white. Like the whole corner is dead, and I gained an extra 50 points. And while the center is still under my influence. So I was thrilled that I finally reversed the game. Although I know it's not over yet because Michael will try to make a comeback. I've lost a lot of games in similar situations against him before, as he has reversed many games like that over the years against a variety of opponents, including a 9-down professional player in the 2018 US Masters. So while I was definitely in a position to win, I clearly can't let my guard down yet. So at this point, the fight kind of concluded. White captured the bottom left, but I captured the top left, while the center was still mine. And the right side was mine to begin with. Now neither side really has any weaknesses to worry about, so it's all come down to points. And if we do a quick count, it's still the same as before. I captured 20-something stones. He captured 26. So white has about 90 plus points, while black has 100 plus this whole influence. I Atari here just as a time Suji, so nothing notable. I'll cover one last shape on the right side. He really made a push to squeeze out every last point and try to trick me. I knew I was up by a lot, like 15 plus on the board. But he managed to almost close the gap in the endgame, which was just scary. It's very stressful to play against him because you know he will never give up until the very, very end. So he tried to play a probing move. Had I just Kasumi here, there wouldn't be all the Aji later. And fast forward a little bit, he played this tricky looking attachment. I didn't really expect this bump, so I can't push here because white can Atari and perfectly capture me. So then I felt I was a little stuck. But I think I can just turn. the turn and cut, or the turn and cut works because I can Atari here. So he profited a little bit, and you can see that this score really narrowed now to only to 4 points. Luckily for me though, the board was just too small for anything major to happen. And my reading after that was relatively accurate. And there was some back and forth too. See, like now I'm up by 10 again, but I also made more mistakes. I even defended in this position. Didn't want to risk it by connecting. There might be some bad Aji. So I played very safe because I knew I had enough. And even then, he tried to pull some funny business at the end. So he attached, I push here. This is all some Sente exchange, doesn't matter. And he tried to start a ko. I made some mistake later too, but my wedge here was a mistake. And then they give him a chance to start a ko. And I wasn't able to determine the value of this trade, so I captured back and took another loss here. And later I won by 4.5. So this trade, it's hard to calculate the value of this trade though. It's because the scale is so massive. I can Atari, and capture. Notice my group is back to life again, but then white also saved the top left. White will then capture here. How big is this trade? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. White saved 29 stones plus destroyed 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 points in territory. So 58 plus 13. That's 73. Wow, 73. 73 points. For black, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, also 28. And then territory, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It seemed like it's a roughly even trade, but then black gets Sente, also captured this stone. So it's slightly better for black. In the game, I took a clear loss. So this is roughly even. Versus in the game, I took a loss because white captured this stone. Wow, so we got a pretty much an even 73 point exchange that was possible in a move 268. Well, yeah. So after that, the game was finally over. He tried to start this final ko and get the last dame. So he gained an extra point from that. That's why he won by 4.5. Usually under AGA rules, right, like black can only win by odd number points. So he captured the ko, and I had to pass twice instead of the normal one passes each. Yeah, so I was very excited to beat him again because he's one of the strongest amateur players and now professional player in North America. I continued my streak of always beating him in City League. Unfortunately for my team though, we couldn't repeat our dominant wins last year. And then our two other boards lost to him. So we ended up losing the round 1 to 2 and missed out a chance to defend our City League title from last year and placing 3rd overall. So we didn't get to play in the final, the top 2 runoff. Last year, I beat Michael in the prelim so that we were first going to the runoff, and we beat New York again. And I also beat Michael again in that final to beat New York for the championship. And now Michael's a professional player, so I'm sure he will continue to study and be a tough opponent as always. But for now, this concludes my commentary. Hope you enjoyed the video, and hope you continue to tune in to my production. Thank you.